Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honor the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Kay Nagendra-Meynard, a senior infrastructure leader with over 2 decades of experience delivering complex, high-value projects across water, energy, and transport. With a sharp focus on governance, risk, and resilience, Kay has shaped major people and digital transformation strategies while driving collaboration across public, private, and global sectors. She's also a passionate advocate for women in STEM, a mentor to future leaders, and a firm believer in the power of people to create lasting impact. So, thank you so much for joining us, Kay. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Angela. Good to see you again.
You too, you're most welcome. Now, Kay, one thing I do love to ask all my guests, because I'm a very curious person, is how on earth did you get started in this industry?
Oh, wow. I come from a family who there are many engineers in my family. My father, at the time he retired, he was a CEO of an engineering company and he started as electronic engineer. I have many cousins, and one of the cousins that I really look up to, he started his career in engineering, and I love maths and physics. So I just naturally kind of like pigeonholed myself into this wonderful world of engineering.
Okay, and so your specific field in engineering, what part is that exactly?
So I'm a civil engineer. I trained as a civil engineer, and
Okay.
then later I went on to do environmental science and pollution control.
And so when you started and you were doing your engineering degree and then starting in the industry, I'd love to hear what kind of barriers you faced as a woman because it wasn't very common back then of female engineers.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. So I started my early career in the UK, and at the time there were not that many women doing civil engineering. And suddenly I was the only brown Asian um, female in the cohort. Um, right from early start, I kind of knew that I will stand out.
Mm.
So in some ways, it was about using it to my own advantage. So if I fell asleep in the class, I would be known. If I shone, I would be known.
Mm.
Um, so it was more about how do I leverage this to get myself really known in the industry. But that's not to say that I didn't have any barriers. And yes, I have got tons of stories about how I how I navigated this and the mistakes I probably made, or how I probably should have stood up and I didn't, and how that has all those experiences actually shaped me into the kind of person who I am right now.
So I'd love to hear one of those stories if you would love to share, please, because I think it's important. I mean, part of helping people is by sharing our own stories and our own experiences where they can learn from that.
So I started my career in water and wastewater. And at the time, I would go out to do some field survey work, which is in doing some hydraulic modelings, you have to put some flow monitors in the pipe network. Then you can basically calibrate from the data that you get from the flow monitors, and you calibrate the model that you're creating. And these flow monitors will be put by some subcontractors, and that could be in very far reaching regional kind of like areas. Um, I would go there as a design supervisor to make sure that the flow monitors are going in the right manholes that I really wanted them to. And if they had difficulties in terms of getting access, where can they go next? And, to guide them basically. Most of the time, it would involve overnight stays in some kind of bed and breakfast that probably could be above a pub. So some of the challenges were social challenges, in terms of when you are staying in those kind of remote locations, very small villages, and you turn up for dinner, the entire pub will turn around and look at, oh, she's not local. Oh, and it's a woman. Oh, and it's an Asian woman. What is she doing here? So I soon realized book was my friend, and walking in confidently and doing my own thing probably was the next, so that I could deter any kind of unwanted attention. That's one. In terms of work and in terms of on-site, I was very lucky enough and very fortunate enough. I didn't have any kind of issues. It was more about knowing my stuff and being informed and being still very respectful for the people that I was working with. But another funny story is that we wear boots, and these are steel toe cap boots when we're going out on site. And some of the areas it gets absolutely muddy. And then you've got to kind of like take your boots off and get into the car and drive on to the next site. And what I used to have was a small brush. And I remember this incident so very clearly. There was a time, this was in an old cemetery, and we were having to do some design work. And he could see that I took my boots off, and I took this small brush off, and I scraped off some of the mud because I didn't want that mud to go into the bag that I had in the boot, where I put the shoes in. And he laughed. And that story went around the office as, oh, Kay has a nail brush in her boot to take the dirt off. And it was almost as if mud was cool. And here she is, trying to be very womany or very girly. This stuck with me. And even very recently, I kind of like reflected that. And I thought, who on earth would want to have mud in their boot of their vehicle? So what I was really doing wasn't anything odd. It was just me being me. But that just translated. And I wish I was able to have stood up and made that comment, oh, would you like mud in your boot? Said something, but I didn't. So yeah, so there you go. There are loads of judgments that's actually being passed, which is totally unwanted in a workplace environment.
And especially being a female, like there's another layer again that we endure as females.
Absolutely. Oh, definitely.
And so with you being, you are a technical specialist, being a civil engineer and doing all that stuff, what kind of behaviors and biases, I guess would be the best word, did you experience in that regards? Because you're actually directing people, like you said, with the flow monitors and everything about what to do. And what kind of biases did you endure as a result of, like I know with some people, they've been mistaken to be the coffee lady when they're actually, you know, the one who's actually the technical expert. So what kind of biases have you experienced along the way?
Oh, most of the time it's subordinate kind of bias. And sometimes when you're in, this is later on in my career, probably when you're in leadership roles, not giving credit where it's really due. And when someone is able to speak and articulate in a certain manner, that surprises the entire room. So
Mm.
another example was I had the opportunity to work for UNICEF, after the 2006 tsunami. And I remember this occasion really well. And there in itself, I needed to navigate loads of cultural issues, going as an expatriate, working in a country, my own hometown. And I needed to be respectful of the country, and I couldn't go in skirts. And I later realized that if I wore saris, I will get more respect. So I navigated that, and I kind of like changed the way in how I dressed sometimes for different meetings. So there was this meeting in with government officials, and there were some expatriates in the room from UNHCR or other organizations representing other organizations. And we were implementing something, and we started to talk about how do we build the capacity of the government in order so that they can then manage the tsunami response. And my predecessor had come up with a model. When I started to talk and when I articulated what this model was, and these are the templates of the letter, I could see how gobsmacked this one particular expatriate was, because he wasn't expecting this lady in a sari to be speaking in this way, and probably with an English accent as well. So there are loads of biases that really drive in. I think in a recent leadership seminar that I attended with at UTS, what was actually presented there is like 29 to 40 different types of biases out there.
Wow.
And and multiple of them is actually put on a female, and sometimes all of them together, lumbered together.
And so, what are some of those biases, if you can recall them from that seminar?
I don't remember all of them, but what can I remember any of them? I think we're very quick to judge when someone walks into the room based on their height, based on the gender, based on their color, based on what they're wearing, based on the first words they speak. We're all very, very quick to judge. Yes.
That's interesting, isn't it? 29 to 40 different
Yes,
biases, and most
yes,
of them against women.
yes. And this is one of the reasons why I don't remember, because I don't pay attention to them. Even if I find that someone is using that particular bias, the challenge for me is how do I bring them along the road, and how do I, change their perception? That is my challenge. I don't I try not to delve too much into the negativity of the what the society sometimes offers readily.
So, with that, with bringing someone on the journey, how have you been able to successfully do that? Because I think that's a key part of what's missing is that there is these, as you said, like, when you walk into a room, there's automatically all these judgments and biases that happen. So, how can you bring someone on that journey to remove some of that?
I totally believe it is about making connections. So another example that I can actually give that really used to annoy me, and I've seen that happen recently as well, is when when there's a lot of men in the room, and men meeting men for the very first time, and they're wanting to make a connection, they start talking about sports. They start talking about, in most of the cases, in my own experience, it's about soccer, and it's about the Premier League, and it's about what Arsenal did, or it's what about Man United did. Did you see that goal? This person did X, and what a lovely shot that was, and how many points they're behind, etc., etc. And just by having that conversation completely excludes me, and it is about them both making that connection and the bond. And I didn't like this very earlier on, and what I really did was just dived into the conversation, and I started asking questions. So that just meant that they no longer were just talking, they now needed to include me into the conversation. And then I would then make it like, oh, do you play soccer? Does your family play soccer? And take it into the area that I'm a little bit more comfortable.
Mm,
Otherwise, I would kind of like divert it to, oh, soccer is like something else, and then I talk about that at
mm,
that particular subject. So it's about realizing why they are doing this. They're not doing this because they really want to exclude you. They're doing this because they want to form that connection, and they
mm,
have found a topic that, that this person really enjoys, and then gone right into that without actually being cognizant that this is excluding someone else.
mm.
So being mindful and then injecting yourself into that one.
Mm,
And then if they completely ignore you, then you know why they're doing that.
yeah.
So, so that's completely different. But this then, opens the door for you to have that three-way conversation and make more connections with the other people, because connection is really important for everyone in any kind of setting.
Well, we're us as humans, it's all about connection because
It is.
the last few years has absolutely shown what happens when you don't have that connection and how detrimental that can be for someone's well-being as well. So I think that whole point of, well, how can you involve yourself and make that connection to still be relevant to the conversation that's happening and find that opening and then, get involved in that way is a great way to be able to do it.
Yeah. Human beings, I think, there's two things that we really need: connections and belonging. So
Mm,
we all innately want to belong, whether this is in a workplace environment, whether this
mm,
is in a social setting, in a group of friends, group of work colleagues. It's that belonging that's really important. And
mm,
often one of the things that I see is that women then change themselves to be like a man in order to be able to belong into that context. And I fundamentally don't think that's really needed. I remember I used to wear um, trouser suits when I was leading a very major project in my earlier career. And when I found that some of my senior who wore trouser suits would then act, and their mannerisms would all be like a man, in order to be on equal par. At that point, I decided, no, this is not how I want to lead my career, or the career path that I want to, or to be even known as.
mm,
And I actually took some of the things, to make it a point that, no, I am a female, but I'm a female leader in this industry.
mm.
And I shone more light into the femininity of it rather than the masculine side, which some of them wanted to shine on in order to be able to fit in.
And
So
I love that because that's the thing is that a lot of female lose that feminine side, and it's like it actually helps bring balance to the male dominated industry as well.
yes, yes, and more and more, I don't think it is. I don't think in any environment that is a single gender focused is great. We talk more about diversity, and it is not just about diversity of colors or genders. It is more about diverse opinions that really matter in
Mm,
order to be able to challenge what the status quo is, innovate, and bring the best from everyone.
mm,
So that the diversity is more about the opinion, because we all come from various different backgrounds.
mm,
Varies. There are people who are neuro divergent rather than neurotypical. That always brings in a great, you know, um, power into that conversation, and power into that innovative way of thinking. Some ideas that's outside the box.
absolutely. And that's so true. And I just want to touch back on something that you mentioned earlier about you being, you've been a female leader in this space and you standing in your power as a female leader. What does a good leader look like to you?
What a wonderful question. Um, for me, a good leader is able to form the connections with the people that they are leading, and bring the best out of those people in order to get to the right outcome that they want to get to. And that what I mean by that is creating that environment in which everyone thrives, creating
Mm,
that culture in which that people can bring their whole self to this conversation, to that workplace.
mm,
And that means that you are forming an authentic connection, a genuine connection, not a fake one, and not one that's only there 9 to 5 or during your work time, and the rest of the time you don't really care what they do outside of that. It
mm,
is about really genuinely making that connection to that person. Um, and then providing that environment means looking at their development, looking at what support they need, understanding what their strengths are, and working from the place of their strengths rather than the development needs. Um, and um, and then being very inspirational, having that vision as to where are we heading, and being collectively being able to take that bullock cart in that direction.
mm.
So for me, that is what a leader.
No, I
And
love that.
and I think another thing that's coming up more and more recently is that um, the leaders need to have the courage to be able to stand up and to take that driving seat, because the world is changing and we're in a space where our leadership journeys are very different to that of many, many years ago.
Mm.
Uh, So having that courage and doing that inner work to be able to ground yourself, and to shine yourself as well, and to be seen as an inspirational leader.
That's beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. It's valuable insights. And there was a word that you touched on as you were talking about that, which was culture. And that's something that I'd love to hear more about. What do you think defines a good culture?
A good culture for me is grounded and founded on respect, respecting each other, has authenticity to it. So there's vulnerability in there. It's a safe space, psychological safe space is created. People are able to experiment different ways of working, but no one blames each other. So there's trust, there's respect, there is fun. You're able to have fun and enjoy each other's company and the work that you're doing as well, and constantly challenging each other respectfully, so that you can always be better and you can always come up with a better outcome rather
Mm,
than just the status quo. So for me, culture is about innovation, culture is about respect, and culture is about being genuine, being able to be your whole self, and one that provides a thriving environment to grow.
mm. I love that. And that's, I wholeheartedly agree with you. When we think about like where the industry is at the moment, it's at a bit of a crisis point, to be fair. Like it's at a bit of a crossroads. And one of the things that is a bit of a recurring theme is that the culture is an issue because people don't necessarily want to come into the industry. There's people leaving the industry. If you think about the industry moving forward, what would you like to see in regards to this space with culture?
I would like to see how we can all be ourselves at work and still have some kind of like, parameters or boundaries that we're working within. But be comfortable to trial new things, trial new ideas, and still feel supported and encouraged to do so.
Hmm.
Um, I'd like to see that we're paying more um, attention to decarbonization and sustainability in all the things that we do. And this is one of my pet topics, you could describe. And how there's so many things that we do actually feeds into that. It's not just about a decarbonization strategy that's on a piece of paper, but it's about the decisions that we make, and being very cognizant about what kind of a long-term effect is it having, in some of your habits, in some of your purchases that you do, in some of the designs that you come up with, etc. So yeah, I would love to see the culture change, that it's cross-generational, that you're in this environment where the those experienced people who have got great wisdom through their experience and their expertise are able to share that with the younger generation, but equally the younger generation are able to share what is so native to them with the older generation. Like, for example, if they have digital expertise, because they are the digital natives of this world.
Mm,
Um, and yes, it would be really lovely to see that collaboration, and to see an environment where people don't feel judged, where all of those onion layers are all kind of
mm,
like left at the door when they walk into that room.
mm,
And you're there about that specific problem and trying to get to that outcome together.
I love that. I love that, and such valuable insights. And thank you for sharing. Now, when we look back on your career, Kay, what has kept you going? Why have you stayed so long in this industry?
Oh, Angela, this is a very good question. I'm not sure whether it's one for the podcast. Um, it's my passion for this industry. I really think we as engineers are architects of the future. We solve problems for the civilization to thrive. And um, and it's wonderful to see how engineers um, are solving all manner of problems. And I'll give you one particular example, and the day that it really reinforced for me. So if you're taking the heavy rail, you'll notice that there is a gap between the platform and the train.
Mm,
And as engineers, there's lots that's actually being done, including my former team as well. It's called the Gap Filler Project.
mm,
I recently had a sort of like an incident, um, and and I realized at that time how valuable the work that we're doing. That project was really hard. It was very hard to design. It was very hard to coordinate with on site because of where the holes can go, where the bolts can go, and taking into account the train that's actually coming in. But it saves lives,
mm,
really does save life, and you enable the civilization to live in this planet, and
mm.
that's what engineering is, and that's what keeps me. Yeah.
I love that. That is so beautiful. And, to actually see the value of what it's bringing to communities as well, and to be able to make you think like us as normal citizens who don't come from an engineering background don't necessarily understand that, but you understand it where it's about, we're actually here to save lives, and it's part of a part of a bigger mission, essentially.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I
Mm.
love that. So when you think back, I mean, what a notable project to be a part of. When you look back on your career, what's one really standout moment for you? And it could be a project, it could be a moment in time, it could be something that changed your life.
Oh, there's two that I can think of. Can't really
Please.
narrow that one. One is at a very young age, I was asked to lead the London 2012 Olympics utilities program, and that was a very good stretch. And it was an amazing project, and amazing to be part of that wonderful culture that the Olympics was driving, and to have that opportunity to grow immensely in that project management role, and actually to see I innately have these skills. And so that was one that probably shaped my career. And then the other one was when I had the opportunity to go over, or when I got selected to be a UNICEF water project officer. And I don't have any experience in development work. And I took my REDAR book, which is a Registered Engineers for Disaster Recovery book, on the plane and trying to read about what is a latrine, what kind of a lavatory system that they have, what is a bowsering, what does that mean, what are boreholes, how do they actually do those things, and learning up about that just through reading that, and then actually, you know, on ground seeing what the issues are that
Mm,
people are having in a disaster recovery situation, and in a country that was heavily war affected as well.
mm,
And that did have a component to it. Those two experiences really shaped me, because the second one also really strongly influenced me in terms of how the cultural dynamics really do have an impact, and how one really needs to adapt in order to be able to thrive and survive in that environment. And I thought I knew everything because I'm going back to my homeland, but I had not realized that, you know, I'd actually innately become an expatriate. And my expectations and the way I was leading some of the projects was very different to how, people in the East have been used to or have been exposed to. So it's that adaptation and that self-discovery of who am I really, and what do I really want to stand up for,
mm,
and where do I want this opportunity to go, and how do I want to lead this, and what kind of impact do I want to have,
mm,
was what came up in the second one. So
mm.
yeah, those are two possibly.
So one sounds like more like like an awesome career opportunity with the London 2012 Olympics. And the other one is still an awesome career opportunity, but there was a lot more personal growth that happened as a result of that.
Absolutely. I think the personal growth happened in both. But the first one was more about, there's quite a lot that I actually got from that.
Mm.
Yes. And the second one was more about um, revelations, and yes. Yeah.
And is there key kind of, light bulb moments or aha moments that you've had about yourself, when you think about that experience, about, who you are as a person or who you need to become, or, some skills that you learnt, some human skills that you learnt as a result of that?
Yes. So the first one is when a female leader can be still female leader,
Hmm.
and how I did not want to conform to the masculinity or the patriarchal system. And that was very, very strong for me. And my voice still matters, and I do have a right to be in this room.
Hmm.
So that was very strong from the first example. From the second example, it was more about the privilege and the opportunity to be able to give, um, and also to actually see how communities who were heavily war affected and who were back to basics with mud houses, and still when we went in, that they had smiles on their face.
Hmm.
They were war affected for over 20 years, and then were heavily tsunami affected, and everything was stripped from them. Yet the happiness was inside,
Hmm.
and that really touched me,
Hmm.
to ground me and to remind myself that what's really, really important is actually you already have that.
And I
Yeah.
love that. And it's kind of like you already have it in you, but sometimes you need an experience to help bring it out of you as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's some, there's some great, just beautiful opportunities that you've been given there, and, such a gift for you to be able to help you grow as a female leader as well. So thank you for sharing that. So what I'd love to ask you now in closing, Kay, if you had a young female in front of you who was looking to get into the STEM pathway, what is some words of wisdom that you could pass on to them to be able to help them?
You are enough. Others don't have to define who you are. Certainly get feedback, and that's very important for anyone's growth. And asking for feedback in the right appropriate way is really important. But none of that really defines who you are. There is no need to conform to if you do not want to. That is, if you want to, then that's a different story. To conform to a this masculine approach to things. I think it's all changing. Even the patriarchal system is actually
Mm,
changing. So believe in yourself.
mm,
That's really foundation. Yeah, so I would probably say you're enough, believe in yourself, do your own kind of development and your own growth, get feedback, and work on developing yourself. Don't try to fight the system too much, because that'll probably just drain you. This is just my opinion. And have a vision as to where you're heading and keep walking, and have there's loads of people there to support and cheer you
mm,
on. And it's important to have that. And
mm,
I have had those wonderful cheerleaders, male and female.
mm.
um and yeah, it's really important to cultivate that support group.
And that's such valuable advice because support is so essential, especially as a female in this industry, to be able to survive and then thrive as well, because we are the minority
Yeah.
as well. So that is key. So thank you so much for your contribution to the industry. Thank you for being the incredible female leader that you are, and for, just not giving up and sticking it out and standing in your truth and power, because you are the epitome of what a female leader and a role model is for this industry. And, I just want to say that I appreciate you for what you're doing and, for being that type of female as well, who's been able to stand in their truth and power, embrace the femininity, not lean into the masculinity, and just to be able to know who you are and really value and trust in that as well. So thank you for everything that you're doing and your contributions to the industry, Kay. We really appreciate it.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Angela. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it too.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share, because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget, you are epic.